Skinheads first appeared in Britain during the late 1960s, born out of working-class pride and the sounds of Jamaican ska and reggae. They stood apart from the hippie wave, preferring shaved heads, boots and sharp shirts that spoke of toughness and identity. Their culture was loud, defiant and unforgettable, mixing street style with music that shook dance halls and pubs alike. For some, it was about belonging and solidarity. For others, it became a symbol of fear. The story of Skinheads is one of pride and controversy, a mirror of Britain's streets in those decades. Looking back, we see not just a style, but a movement that left its mark on generations. The skinhead movement was born in the streets of London during the late 1960s, at a time when Britain's working class was searching for a louder voice. Young men from council estates and industrial towns shaped this subculture as a rejection of the dreamy optimism of the hippies. It was a culture forged in factories and pubs, not in universities or parks. Their cropped hair and sturdy boots symbolized both practicality and rebellion. These were clothes that could withstand a day's work and a night's fight, creating a look that spoke of grit. Style became armor, reflecting the hard edges of the lives they led. This origin was deeply connected to class pride. While the middle classes embraced peace signs and flower power, skinheads claimed pride in being rough, grounded and unpolished. They stood as living reminders that Britain's backbone came from labour, not luxury. Skinheads were children of the streets, embodying both hardship and resilience. The rejection of hippie ideals was also cultural. Long hair and loose clothes felt indulgent, distant from the struggles of working-class families. Skinheads carved their own identity instead, one rooted in toughness, music, and neighbourhood solidarity. They represented defiance in its rawest form, and that made them impossible to ignore. The skinhead look was unmistakable. Cropped or shaved heads, braces stretched over crisp shirts, steel-toe boots laced tight, and Crombie coats on cold nights. It was a style that rejected excess and embraced uniformity. Fashion was a badge of belonging, signalling toughness and pride. Ben Sherman shirts, stay-pressed trousers, and Levi's jeans became essential, worn sharp but practical. The braces, boots, and bomber jackets carried working-class utility, but they were worn with attitude. Every item of clothing spoke of identity, turning everyday wear into symbols of loyalty. Haircuts were perhaps the boldest statement. Short hair was a rejection of hippie culture, but it was also practical for factory life. The look demanded respect, instantly marking the wearer as someone with edge. Cropped hair was a silent shout, uniting skinheads across cities. What set this style apart was its balance between sharpness and ruggedness. It was clean, precise, but never delicate. Skinheads could step into a pub, a football terrace, or a dance hall and feel part of something bigger. Their fashion was their flag, worn with pride and purpose. Music was the lifeblood of the skinhead identity. Jamaican ska and rocksteady records filled dance halls, carried by immigrants who had brought their rhythms to Britain. Skinheads embraced the sound wholeheartedly, building friendships across communities. The beat of reggae became the heartbeat of the streets, bridging cultures in ways politics often failed to. Later, the music evolved. Two-tone bands like the Specials and Madness captured the spirit of unity, mixing black and white influences in songs that became anthems. Oi then followed, giving voice to anger, energy, and working-class frustration. Skinhead music was never background noise. It was declaration, played loud and lived louder. The link to Jamaican rude boy culture was especially significant. It showed that the subculture wasn't born from isolation, but from interaction. Shared clubs, shared records, and shared nights out created bonds that outlasted prejudice. Skinheads were multicultural before the word was common, united through rhythm and dance. These musical tastes shaped daily life. From record shops to all-night clubs, the soundtrack of ska, reggae and oi defined skinhead gatherings. The music was their fuel, giving them both joy and identity in a society that often overlooked them. The year 1969 is remembered as the peak of the original skinhead culture. Known as the Spirit of '69, it was a moment when style, music, and community aligned. It was the era of inclusivity and pride, when skinheads were as much about celebration as rebellion. This period was marked by unity across racial and class lines. Clubs pulsed with ska and reggae, and friendships formed across immigrant and working-class youth. It was a snapshot of possibility, a vision of Britain's streets alive with shared energy. The style during this time was sharper, more defined and more confident than ever. Fashion, music and street culture merged into something distinct, giving rise to the enduring image of the skinhead. The Spirit of '69 became myth and memory, carried forward by those who lived it. Looking back, this moment represents what many see as the true skinhead identity, before political hijacking and media distortions. It was an era when being a skinhead meant pride, solidarity and sound. The Spirit of '69 is still celebrated, proof that its legacy endures beyond decades. As the '70s began, some skinheads transitioned into what became known as Suedeheads. They grew their hair slightly longer, swapped boots for loafers, and embraced sharper suits and Crombie coats. The Suedehead look was more polished, but still rooted in toughness, a style evolution rather than a revolution. Their music tastes also shifted. While ska and reggae remained, Suedeheads also embraced soul, glam rock and later two-tone, reflecting broader cultural changes. They expanded the playlist without erasing their roots, keeping one foot in tradition and the other in change. This evolution reflected growing maturity. Many early skinheads were aging into work and family life, and the Suedehead image allowed them to maintain identity while appearing more adaptable. It was a subculture adjusting to adulthood, blending rebellion with refinement. The Suedehead era proved that subcultures could evolve without disappearing. Even today, Suedeheads are remembered as a bridge between the rawness of '60s skinheads and the sharper fashions of later decades. They carried the flame while softening the edges, ensuring the spirit survived. By the late '70s and into the '80s, extremist political groups began to hijack elements of skinhead culture. The National Front and similar organisations sought to recruit disillusioned youth, twisting the image of the skinhead into a symbol of hate. The subculture's reputation was scarred as violence and racism dominated headlines. This appropriation overshadowed the movement's multicultural roots. The same boots that once danced to reggae were now linked in the media to street fights and marches. Skinheads became a battleground of perception, their diversity drowned out by extremist factions. Yet many within the culture fought back. Anti-racist groups and traditional skins insisted that their roots were about unity, not division. They kept playing reggae, they kept dressing sharp, and they refused to surrender their identity. The struggle to reclaim skinhead culture became its own story, one of resistance against misrepresentation. The damage, however, lingered. Public opinion often equated skinheads with violence, despite the fact that many remained apolitical or anti-racist. Political hijack rewrote the narrative, leaving scars on a culture that had once been a symbol of unity. As extremist groups tried to steal the image of skinheads, others rose to protect its original spirit. Groups like Skinheads against racial prejudice stood firmly against hate, reminding the world that the movement had been born out of multiculturalism. They defended the music, the fashion, and the unity, refusing to let racism define them. These factions worked tirelessly in clubs, concerts, and communities to show that reggae and ska remained at the heart of the subculture. Their presence ensured that new generations saw another side of skinhead life. It was a struggle for authenticity, fought on the very streets where the culture had begun. Their resistance wasn't just political, it was personal. For many, the friendships and bonds with black and immigrant communities were central to their youth. Rejecting racism was about defending their own memories and identities. They fought not only for culture, but for truth, protecting the legacy of inclusivity. Thanks to their efforts, the history of skinheads remains layered, not singular. They made sure the world remembered the spirit of '69, not just the headlines of hate. The anti-racist fight kept the culture alive, reminding everyone of its proud and diverse roots. Skinheads were as much a presence as a style. Their short hair, boots and stance projected toughness that resonated in pubs, clubs, and on football terraces. They were symbols of strength, known for moving in tight groups that commanded respect. The culture thrived on the streets. Football matches became arenas of display with chants, camaraderie, and sometimes violence feeding the skinhead reputation. The terraces were stages of identity, where pride and aggression blended into one. But toughness wasn't only about fights. It was about survival in working-class Britain, where poverty, cramped housing and unemployment demanded resilience. Skinheads embodied that resilience, turning hardship into a badge of honour. Their look was both shield and statement, declaring their roots and their grit. In everyday life, their presence couldn't be ignored. Whether in pubs after long shifts or dancing late into the night at ska clubs, skinheads carried themselves with an unmistakable edge. They were street-level icons of defiance, visible in every stride and shout. Photographers, journalists, and filmmakers captured the skinhead movement in all its complexity. From Derek Ridge's stark portraits to gritty depictions in films like This Is England, the subculture became immortalized in art. Skinheads were symbols of raw reality, their intensity etched into Britain's cultural memory. Books and documentaries explored both the beauty and the darkness of the movement. They highlighted the music, the style, and the community bonds, while also confronting the violence and appropriation that scarred its image. Their story was too powerful to ignore, inspiring countless retellings across decades. On screen, skinheads became characters both feared and admired. They embodied the clash of pride, anger, and belonging, offering stories that resonated far beyond Britain. The subculture became a lens through which society examined itself, a mirror reflecting working-class struggle and rebellion. Even today, their image recurs in fashion, music videos, and photography. The boots, braces, and shaved heads remain instantly recognizable. Cultural memory keeps skinheads alive, ensuring their story continues to provoke debate and fascination. Would images still capture rebellion so honestly? Though born in Britain, the skinhead subculture spread internationally, carried by music, migration, and media. By the 80s, scenes had emerged across Europe, North America, and beyond. The look and attitude became global exports, adapted to local struggles and contexts. Each branch developed its own flavour. Some remained close to the spirit of '69, rooted in ska and reggae, while others drifted into politics, both left and right. The skinhead world became fragmented but enduring. A family tree with many branches, festivals, concerts and gatherings kept the culture alive, even as mainstream society viewed it with suspicion. The fashion and music proved timeless, speaking to new generations in new countries. Skinhead culture became a living archive, flexible but recognizable everywhere it went. Today, whether in London, Berlin or New York, skinheads still exist in various forms. Some remain apolitical, others radical, but all connect to a shared heritage. Global persistence proves that the movement never died, it only evolved into a worldwide identity. Skinheads in Great Britain were never just about boots and cropped hair. They were about identity, pride, and the sound of music that echoed through council estates and dance halls. They embodied the grit of working-class life, sometimes celebrated, sometimes feared, but always impossible to ignore. From the spirit of '69 to the Suedehead evolution, and from anti-racist resistance to global persistence, the story of skinheads is both cultural and controversial. Looking back today, it becomes clear that skinheads were more than a stereotype. They were a generation's cry for belonging and recognition. If you want to keep exploring the hidden stories of Britain's past, make sure to subscribe, because history is never just about the headlines, it's about the people who lived it.